This is Stephen Kotler, and you're listening to Your Superior Self.
This is Christina Rasmussen, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Dave Meltzer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, I'm Anita Murjani, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, beautiful people? Welcome back. I'm Trey Downs, and this is Your Superior Self. I have allergies. Or a cold. I don't know what it is. I woke up this morning and felt like I felt, maybe it's a man cold. I don't know. My wife is making fun of me. But anyway, thank you for taking the time to download. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me today. I have an amazing guest, Alexsys Thompson, joining the show. She is amazing. She's an author coach. She loves to create a safe space for souls to show up on this planet. What does that mean? She helps them be the best version of themselves by using the tools that she has developed for herself. She uses not just typical business coaching techniques, but she uses the idea that the whole is greater than the parts concept. And I mean the entire whole, the soul whole, the soul's relationship with the body, the power that is the higher self that is showing up here on earth. And she helps us become the best version of ourselves through recognizing, these powerful characteristics that we have here, and using soul language to help us become a more graceful leader, whether that's in business or in life. Yeah, we have a pretty fun conversation. There's a hot take that I want you to hear that Lexi drops on us, and it goes a little something like this.
So I have taken in all of her practices in communing with the spirits and the Davic energies of land. So when we came here and purchased this place we now call Ubuntu, every move that we make before we take a tree down, put a building up, anything like that, we're working with Gaia to make sure that that's the appropriate move. So the whole premise is that nature brings into the relationship form, and the human brings in free will. And we're meant to work together in honor and union with each other, not one superior to the other. I don't know if I've said this out loud on the air to anybody, but I'll share it with you.
Yes, hot take.
Okay, so when I was 9 years old, this is my Hawkins moment, not as severe though. I was sitting out on a snow pile in Vermont, like when they used to be 9 feet tall, because I was only 3 feet tall, right? And I had a moment.
That's a pretty good lead in, pretty good teaser there. But you're going to have to listen to the majority of the interview to get to that point. But it's worth it because the story is amazing. Lexi is amazing. It's very cool that she came on the show. Shout out to her. Happy Mother's Day to her as well. You will see in the interview she has some special gifts, and she's probably checking in on her children as we speak. But before we get into it, I want to mention a great organization that is doing some really cool things for kids. Maryland CASA Association is a private, nonprofit 501c organization incorporated in 1997 to facilitate the continued development and success of Maryland's courts appointed special advocate programs to ensure that every abused and neglected child in the state has a safe and permanent home. In 1977, Seattle Superior Court Judge David Sokup was concerned about trying to make decisions on behalf of abused and neglected children with very limited information. He conceived the idea of appointing community volunteers to speak up for the best interests of these children in court. He made a request for volunteers. 50 citizens responded, and that was the start of the CASA movement. This is a part of my sacred activism movement, bringing more awareness to organizations like CASA, an effort to bring awareness to children suffering, family suffering, It is something that breaks my heart, and I want to do everything in my power to bring more attention to great organizations that are doing great work. So if you know of one and want to reach out to me to give me some more information about that, please do. You can go to traydowns.com, leave me a message over there, or if you follow me on Instagram, tdowns80, you can leave a message over there as well. Guys, this is going to be awesome, amazing. I can't wait to share this with you. So without further ado, here's the great and powerful Alexsys Thompson.
Hi, this is Alexsys Thompson, and this is Your Superior Self.
Lexi, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. How are you tonight?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Doing excellent. Very interested in what you're doing. Not too many people combine consciousness and leadership and soul language. Those are all different. I don't know. I feel like that type of language is very, I don't know. And it's, certain spots of business, right? Or not even in certain spots of business, but like, I don't know. I've never heard it in business. So it's like, it's kind of interesting that you've taken that on.
Yeah, thank you. It's I think ended up being perfect time.
Well, I think there's more of an awareness now than there used to be, right? Like I think the business world is definitely different, just because of what we're living in now with the pandemic and politics. I think people are begging for some change. How'd you get into this? Like, how did you get into this? I guess coaching one, but how are you? Bringing in your specialization of consciousness, and I want to know a little bit more about soul language too.
Yeah. So in my executive coaching practice, in the beginning of it was all about performance and metrics, right? How can I help organizations make people work smarter, harder kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And then over time, that became less fulfilling to just be looking at metrics, and the souls, the people that were showing up were showing up hungry for more meaning and purpose, which we're starting to see in the world now. That was probably a decade and a half ago. So I started to watch the people that were coming in to the coaching practice and really cataloging the real reason that they were showing up, even if their corporation was sending them in for, hey, he or she needs to up-level their attitude, or their performance is dipping, or whatever the symptom was, that there were some common threads in the actual real reasons that they bothered to show up in the conversations. And it became really apparent that there was a disconnect, conscious and unconscious, between what they were doing and who they were. And they were trying to figure out, do they have to be different? Can I be the same person more than I'm not? Is that innately how our world works? If it is, I don't really like it and I don't know what to do about it, kind of thing. And so as they were doing that, we started having conversations about spirituality and purpose and mission and all of those more soul-centered conversations. And in my coaching practice, I just started going there. Both myself, I was already on that journey. And so it seemed natural to take people with me and talk about things that were more spiritually centered, such as grace, and bring it into the business context so it was practical and actionable, so that the heart center and the head center were mirroring up more than they had experienced in the past.
And what is soul language? Like, what is that? How did you come up with that?
Yeah, that's a method that Jennifer Rizzio kind of downloaded her channel. And it's a methodology or a practice of, you go to a practitioner, which I'm one of, and we use a kinesiology practice, body muscle testing, to help someone identify their soul languages. And then she has many different programs and things for you to kind of understand how to connect to your inner guide system, which these 3 soul languages would be a key part of. And that has been for some clients that's a totally appropriate tool. For some, it's not, depending on where they are in their own journey. But when it is, it's really potent, because they start to learn that they have everything innately, wholly and completely within themselves to access. And then it's just, how can I practice the access points?
Well, that's interesting. Like finding out your soul language. Like, so I'm assuming you do muscle testing, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
but all right. So the muscle testing is when the muscle goes strong, that's truth. When it's goes limp, it's false, right? So how do you figure out the language from there? Like, I mean, what is that? Like, how would you figure out someone's soul language? Like using that
So
technique?
yeah, so there's a practice that you learn with Jennifer, and you're meeting with someone, and listened to a couple of your podcasts, so I think you're pretty advanced in this, how to connect with other realms kind of thing. And so what you're doing is you're asking permission to have that energetic connection to another human being or their soul and your soul. And you're going through the process that Jennifer teaches you. And then you're using your body. I don't know how to say this more differently. You're using your body to get their answers because they may not know that skill or have access to that most often. And then you're just giving back what they gave you in a format through soul languages that she created, that they can start having access to their inner guidance system. And, there's the axiom of quest, the axiom of translation. And so you start to understand in your inner guide system, I don't want to say hierarchy because it's not really that, but how different parts of your system will allow you to have access to deeper knowings about what you came in with than you had access to before because it was an unconsciousness.
What kind of questions can you ask?
You can ask any question you want. So I use I use my languages, my personal languages a lot when I am working in discerning, like I'm making big decisions or I'm looking at creating a pivot for myself or with somebody else. I've used it a lot to make really strong, sustainable decisions where before I might have gone in and waffled a little bit. Like I would look at the logic of it. The logic said yes, but intuitively I knew probably not a great idea for whatever reason. But I'd always usually go with the logic because that's what we're trained to do. And then I'd be surprised when it didn't work out. I don't do that anymore.
Well, yeah. Logic and that knowing, right? Like,
yeah.
Can you give me an example of like a really eye opener, like a reality that you've created or found out about, like a question that you asked or you went into it wanting to know something and then it came to fruition? Like, can you give an example of that?
Yeah, I can.
Because I'm interested.
Yeah, so that's cool. I'm glad you are. So one of my soul languages is called prophet. And so that is a futuristic kind of access point, which in all of my assessments, that shows up in some form or fashion. So it's a part of how I came into the world. And so I use that guide, my prophet guide, to help me discern a decision's today's impact in the future. And I'm going to give you a practical example. So back in 2008, I had a robust gratitude practice, and I was going through and looking at the patterning in there, and I had this epiphany and this realization that I hadn't strung together before, that in my gratitude practice, I was always thankful for clean air, mountains, and fresh water. At the time, I'm living in a suburb of Houston. None of those things exist there. I began to wonder, how could I create that reality in my everyday life, knowing in that moment that it wasn't going to be in the physical location I was. So I did a lot of meditation practice and all the things to support that aha moment of, oh my Lord, I'm leaving Houston, which was never a thought before that moment. And so I used prophet because this tool came in after that. But since then, I've used it to help me discern, okay, if not Houston, where? Where do I go? I grew up on the East Coast, which is where I am right now. So I thought, I should go to the West Coast, right? That's my logic mind going, I've already done that. I should go do this. In all of the beta testing and all of my other tools before this tool, I was going to be in Washington or someplace over there, lovely places. But when I would go test out those locations, there was no embodiment or hits that this was the place. When I started using the soul languages, when I came up to Vermont, which is actually where I'm from, so I thought I kind of don't need that t-shirt. I've got it. That's where my whole family is. I've been gone 25 years. No, thank you. Right. Well, I kept getting this hankering to check out some property. It's a long story, but by circumstance, we walked up onto this property that wasn't listed in the real estate agent folder. It was a conversation of a conversation. We weren't sure it was for sale. We thought it might be. So we came up to look at it. And in the moment of like putting my feet on the ground, everything about my profit guiding system was going ding, 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 ding. My logic mind was like, no. And I literally hit my knees over by the brook in tears going, I know this is what I have to do. I don't really think I want to do it, but I know this is what I have to do. So I just dropped into profit. And I also have teacher of integrity, which is another soul language. So I use the two of them together a lot to kind of check out my own BS as well as others. And so I just checked my system and I surrendered into, okay, I'm moving back to Vermont, which felt like failure in some ways because I'm like, who wants to go home? And the truth is that I can fast forward 3 years from that date and we're here. We've acquired more and more property. We have people coming in droves to be a part of this community called Ubuntu that we're developing. And so that's affirmation that when I surrendered into the profit, the knowingness of who that I am, and let the logic just rest a little bit, then things came into alignment and flow much more gracefully.
I love that. I think I was just talking about this recently about logic and the analytical mind and how it it's pretty much programmed to like keep you from doing things. Either, evaluating data that, and then skewing that data to protect you and saying, oh, well, this supports this theory. Like you shouldn't do that. But then you have the gut, right? Like the heart brain, the gut brain that are pulling you in a different direction. And usually that direction's right. It's just, you just feel this, you just get that gut feeling. Like when you meet somebody, right? That energy. When somebody's right or wrong, right? Like, that you just feel this, like, man, I don't know what it is, but this guy rubs me the wrong way. Or this girl rubs me the wrong way. And most of the time, if you don't listen to that, like you end up like on the wrong side of the, you either something has happened, like they'll either, take your money or break your heart. I mean, it's, never a good thing. And I mean, you can feel like, I don't know, you can feel the energy when you walk in somebody's house and like, you're like, man, something's off. Like feng shui, I'm learning, is a real thing. Like,
it is a real thing.
Like I didn't think so. And then like, yeah, it's a real thing. Energy is for real. It's just interesting.
It's really the only thing that is real.
Yeah, it is. Vibrational, like I'm learning all about that. Like, I don't know, it's just crazy. How quantum physics and quantum mechanics has helped me find my path on spirituality. It's crazy that science could do that, right? But it's crazy that you're doing that in the business world too, because I feel like for the longest time, business was. I love that it's transitioning. I like that idea. Like I really appreciate people like you are facilitating that movement, because for a long time, the boomers. I think didn't support that. I think now you're seeing a total shift. And how hard is it to break into that, right? Like how is there, like how large is the market? If we're going to talk about business, you might as well use business term. Yeah. How big is the market for this?
So the book that I wrote recently called The Power of Graceful Leader is an indicator to that. So in the publishing realm, when I was going to just go the traditional route, I had people tell me, no, we're interested in your content, but we're not interested in your title, and we don't want to use that word, graceful. And I remember sitting with that going, but that's the name of the book. Like, I didn't know how to redo that. So I just said thanks, but no thanks, and just ended up publishing it myself. And the whole time in the back of my mind, honestly, was that it's not going to work. It's not, they're the logic, the monkey brain going, someone told you it's not going to work. But then from a series of happenstance over writing this book and stopping and starting, it actually landed and went live on the 19th of January. So inauguration, the big day, right?
Big day.
which was really not by design at all, by me consciously. And so when that happened, there was this equally big knowing that the timing was it was divine, because it wasn't my timing. It wasn't the people that helped me get the book on the market's timing. It's just the way it rolled out. And interestingly enough, because I have enough in my own practice, I have enough street cred to know business conversation. When people started to see me having this strange conversation, they became curious. And unbeknownst to them, in 2018, I'd had an offsite retreat with some executive females called The Power of a Graceful Leader, testing my theory, right? I wanted to test it, check the sustainability. We took over the next 2 years, I tracked their sustainability, and it was really sticky. And the reason it was really sticky was it was transformational at the heart center, the grace center of the body. So it was an embodied practice, not just a cerebral practice. So once we could show proof, and I wrote a case study and then wrote the book, there's like the logical mind could now at least entertain the possibility. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's getting some traction. It's done well. It looks like it's going to be picked up by some big lists of books. I made the tenets really, really practical so that they're not too heady for someone. Yeah, if someone enters this practice and they want to go take a huge spiritual deep dive, they're going to be so well prepared for it because they're going to have access to heart center. And this practice creates the roadmap between the brain and the heart, which we know often aren't connected. And that you'll be ready for that next iteration. So I think the tolerance is there. I'm working with conscious capitalism right now on that whole movement and embedding this in a couple of different ecosystems.
Sure.
So I think the interest is there. I think the timing is right, and we'll see how sticky we can make it. That's really what it comes down to.
Sticky icky.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I think that's great. I'm interested. I love experimenting with new things. I love curiosity. I think that's where you hook them, really. I'm still curious about things. How did you get in this for yourself, right? Like, you coming from the executive world, right? Like, corporate, and then now you're talking about soul language, which I love. I think it's great.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
So I think whether it's the human tragedy or not, I'm not sure. But sometimes crisis creates an opportunity. And I had a couple of really big health crises in 2007, and then started the journey then into healing, because I don't practice Western medicine. So in my practice with acupuncture and energy healers and all of those things, I had to, and getting a huge benefit, like really experiencing the benefit, which wasn't validated anywhere, right? I listened to one of your podcasts recently about that. And yeah, I could stand here and tell you it's working, because watch, I couldn't do this yesterday and look what I can do today, kind of thing. Sure. I began to have to acknowledge that there was something more than my Catholic faith at work. And so I had put down my Catholic faith for many years due to an internal crisis with that particular structure and religion as a whole in general. And so I'm very curious. So I studied many different religions. I studied things that weren't religion but are spiritual. I studied the dark side and the light side of those things. And I just became keenly aware that really all it is energy exchange. And we get to choose at what vibration we're exchanging energy. And there's really like literal things we can do in order to elevate our beingness in the world on the consciousness scale. And that's where I've spent the last decade of my life. For people that have been around me over the past 2 or 3 decades, they would very easily tell you the Lexi that was 8 to 10 years ago doesn't exist. There's a whole new person really there. And it's in large part, if not in all part, due to my connection to source and to my own divinity and to my absolute undying, unquenched thirst for alignment between why I came in here and how I show up here.
There's so much I want to unpack in that. What was Lexi like 10 years ago or 8 years ago?
Yeah, so high performer, kind of a bulldozer, didn't really worry about people's feelings, just results. Unable to express my own emotional landscape very well. It was all subconscious self-sabotaging behavior. I've always had a deep compassion for others and no way to express it. Like I had no constructive way to express it. So I did it by alienating myself. I'm an introvert by nature. So it was easy to just hold back me because I didn't necessarily have the skills to share me appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would, it would be in bursts that would be too much for the other person. And then I started to learn tolerance, and for myself mostly, that self-love journey that everyone talks about that few of us endeavor on. The truth is that's where the healing is. And then in relationship, I started practicing humility and honesty, and making a mess of it often at first and then cleaning it up.
That's tough. I mean, it's
honesty,
right? Like, I mean, love and honesty are two of the toughest things to do because like you got to have courage to be able to say the truth, and then to love yourself unconditionally, that self-love. That's even worse because your ego is just sitting there like chirping in your ear, like, how bad you are. And you want to, it's not that I hate the ego. It's just that I recognize it more than I used to. Like I used to think I was the ego. I used to think it was me 100%. And like, I let it determine my actions, my thoughts, my emotions. And I was a bully. I was not aggressive, but like I was maybe aggressive in decision making, but now that I look back, 5 years ago, I'm totally different. Like you were talking about, like, I'm not like a saint, obviously, but like I understand the heart center a lot more. And I know what that feels like when it's activated. And I prefer that over being right a lot of the times. Like the ego is like, oh, you're right. Just continue to win this argument. And I'm just like, I'm good, man. Like I'm good with whatever. Like I want to feel that activated. I want to feel aligned. And like you were saying, like energy, like I want to feel my energy is one. I want to feel like my energy is helping the universal consciousness. I want to feel like I'm putting that energy out into the world. And I want to feel, I don't know. I just feel like when I listen to the ego, that energy goes down a lot. And, I end up making bad decisions.
Yeah. Did you as you've been going through this experience, one of the big ahas for me was that part of my own self-love journey was really loving ego where it was, because it was fractured, right? I had the 5-year-old ego that had whatever it had, and the 17-year-old ego had whatever it had, and on and on and on, just like all of us. And when I went back in and I started being with those parts of myself that were disjointed, disconnected in some way or another, it all started to kind of lovingly come together so that my ego is more intact, if that's even a thing to think about. And it allows my ego to actually offer me cues when I might not otherwise have had the cue. So I kind of think, I look at my ego as a really cool partner, because it's been large part of my strategy for success for more than half of my life. So I don't want to just throw it overboard. I just needed to get in line with the program, the new program, and it seems to be working. And how about for you?
Yeah, I mean, through awareness, through emotional intelligence, I guess, or maybe thought intelligence, maybe kind of realizing that, because I get lost in it. I mean, I fall asleep to it. I'll get in a conversation or I'll get into an environment that it's not an outside environment that I'm not, especially with COVID, right? Like, I've been working from home, and we're slowly getting back into the grind a little bit. But I've been I've had my meditation practice. I've had, things that I do. And then when you get outside of that, you get back caught into that real world, that busyness. So like I'll fall asleep to the ego, and then something will trigger me. Like I'll have like my necklace around my wrist or something, or I'll do something to kind of bring that awareness back to where I need to be. And then I can check myself a little bit. But the ego has been For me, it's like you said, it's not a bad thing. I just think you're never going to get rid of it just because of our evolution and human beingness, or we're human, beings. We're not going to get rid of that part of the brain that is the eye. But you learn to recognize it. And I think once you start, exercising that awareness, I think it starts overflowing different parts of your life where you can bring yourself back to center. You're never, that's just the human experience. That's,
Yes.
Like you said, that's why I'm here. This is, in this incarnation is to learn to experience. And it's like, there's only a handful of great sages and people that are, like Jesus, Buddha, and, a handful of others that have been like, obviously historical figures that have mastered this. But for us, it's, if you break it down on a micro level, I mean, essentially we're all connected, I think, like we're all connected anyway on a very micro level through energy and through the human the universal consciousness. But when you look at us as this incarnation, this human aspect, this physical plane, it's to gain experience of that, to see where you're at in your evolution as a soul, like it took me a long time it took me so much to realize this, like to awaken to that.
Yeah.
And the ego, I had to mess a lot of things up as far as, starting the podcast and thinking it was going to be straight business and straight, business strategies and business techniques and blah, blah, blah for the blue collar guy. And then all of a sudden the universe started throwing like curveballs at me. I started getting guests that weren't typically on my radar. But when I read their research, a lot of psychologists about consciousness and things like that. And I was like, man, this is very interesting. And that's all it took was that curiosity. And then I started reading about near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences with Robert Monroe. And I was like, holy crap, like, where is this world? Like, what have I been missing out on? Like, it's funny how the more that I research Eastern philosophy, like meditation was in Christianity, but they somehow have taken it out. Like, I don't know what century, but like Saint Teresa, like her Inner Castle book, that's all about meditation and reaching that different levels of consciousness where you get the arrow of God shot directly into your heart where it activates. And now you're feeling bliss. Like that is like meditation is in Christianity. They took it out because for some political reason. But now it's been so important in my development. I don't know about you. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's been huge. I mean, the whole place that we're creating here, I don't know if you've heard of the proverb about Ubuntu, but Ubuntu is an African proverb that says, I am because you are. So it's very clear that I, as a human being, become who I am as a human being because you're over there being your human being, right? And so together we refine each other in the knowingness and the experience of being whatever human is. And so that's the essence of this whole place that we're creating. And the vibration, the whole intention is to bring the vibration up to the gratitude space of 540 so that people are coming in with a higher level of consciousness so they can do their genius work, get all the other noise out.
540. Where'd you pull that number from?
Which what?
540. Where does that come from? Like 540.
Yeah. So when you look at David Hawkins' levels of consciousness, joy.
Oh, you're talking about
500.
Okay.
Gratitude comes in at 540.
250 is what? 250 is like.
You're lucky to be functioning at 250. Like most human beings are functioning between 2 and 250.
I'm very impressed by you using that levels of consciousness, that scale.
It's in the book.
I didn't get a book. I need to get a book.
I'll have to send you one. I'm sorry, I didn't know. But
putting you on the spot on the podcast.
No, that's okay. I'll be happy to send it to you. I didn't know.
I want an autographed copy.
I will send you one tomorrow. That's what I'm saying is I'm introducing those concepts in a business book, and people are intrigued with it because they just haven't heard of it before.
No, because it's against a lot of people's beliefs. Like to think that, right? Not just business beliefs, but like personal religious beliefs. Thinking about you can use kinesiology to figure out your own consciousness, right? Like to see what level you're at. Oh, am I above 200? The strength theory, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I read his book. What is it? Power versus Force.
Yes, it is.
It's fascinating work. I'm actually like, his story is pretty fascinating. Like where he talks about where he went on a route, like when it was a snowstorm in the Midwest, like Minnesota, I think, where he grew up. And he had like that blissful moment where he had, like, I don't know, back in the day when they had 90-mile mail paper routes, and he did it on a bicycle, got caught in like a winter storm and had to hunker down and like almost died. And his father found him. And he had this like moment, like out of body. He didn't say near death experience, but I'm assuming like a blissful out of body experience. And that's when like one instance where, he experienced that, but he's an atheist majority of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then he almost died, I think at like 39, 38. And he had that vision of, he explains it as like experiencing Dante's Inferno. Like he was the lower levels of hell, and he asked for help, and an angel came down, and it was over after that. And that's when he started realizing higher levels of consciousness.
Yeah. Have you done much work with spiral dynamics?
No, I have not.
You have to check it out. Ken Wilber's work, Don Beck's work.
What is
Spiral
that?
dynamics. You'll enjoy that. It's just another look at another view at a lot of the same things. And that was a lot of where I had a lot of my first, like, big holy moly moments.
Where are you at now? Like, where are you at now? Right. Like, so everyone thinks, like, I know I get in states, and the ego does this to me a lot, where I think, oh, I already know everything. Like, I've gotten to this point, like what else is there to learn? But then right around the corner, there's somebody I've never even heard of. And then I find out more. Where are you at with your path?
Such an interesting question.
Well, cause like, you feel like, you like Dr. Hawkins, right? And then you figure, you have your stuff going on, and it's like, what's the next thing, right? Like, what's around the next corner that's going to make you more curious? Like, that's going to hit that spot, like.
I grew up, my favorite letter in the alphabet is Y. I'm really serious. I have it all over my house because it's a whole word in one letter, and it changes everything. If you're willing to just ask why is that so?
Well, who's been the most influential on you? Author or person? Who's been the most influential?
Well, honestly, I've had this question a lot since reading the book. And so I have two answers. One is from a very young age, and this is one people are like, really? And I'm like, Margaret Mead. Do you know who that is?
No.
Sociologist. So Margaret Mead is a sociologist. She studied people, and she understood very early on in her business, in her science, and her knowing of human behavior, that small groups of people change every single thing. And if we were willing to equip a small group of people with things that they needed, we would be able to eradicate all the stuff, all the things. But we don't do that. And so we end up with other things. And so she's been a hero of mine since I was in high school.
That's awesome. No,
most
she's
currently
right.
Though, Mother Nature is my teacher.
Mother Nature, Gaia. Why is that? Like, what inspired that? I mean, obviously, Mother Earth is a that's, I don't mean to sound like that, like, why Mother Earth? But I mean, like, what inspired that? Because I tell you what's weird, and I'll tell you what inspired me, and it just came out of nowhere. Like, have you ever seen the movie Avatar? Like, it just
I love that movie.
It rekindled my love for Mother Gaia. Like, like just thinking about how, because you look at the people that come in with all the technology and trying to take over all the minerals and the things of value, and it's like, that is so us. Like, we just do this. We kill her all the time, and it's like, all she does is like, I mean, yeah, let's see. Back in the day with saber-tooth tigers, they were trying to kill us, but all she does is nurture us, right, and give us a place. And she nurtures us, and she gives us nothing but like air, nothing but water, nothing but love, and this is how we take care of. Anyway, questions back to you. Like, what inspired
I'll give you
that?
another author you can check out.
All right.
So there's a woman called Michelle. She has had two different last names, but Michelle Wright or Michelle Smith, depending upon what book. But the book is called behaving as if the God in all things matter. And she has had a very interesting life communing with nature. So she has a place in Virginia called Paralandra. And then she wrote her memoir called Pivot, which I think you should definitely pick up.
Yeah.
So I have taken in all of her practices in communing with the spirits and the Davic energies of land. So when we came here and purchased this place we now call Ubuntu, every move that we make before we take a tree down, put a building up, anything like that, we're working with Gaia to make sure that that's the appropriate move. So the whole premise is that nature brings into the relationship form and the human brings in free will. And we're meant to work together in honor and union with each other, not one superior to the other. And, you know, I don't know if I've said this out loud on the air to anybody, but I'll share it with you.
Yes. Hot take.
Okay. So when I was 9 years old, this is my Hawkins moment, not as severe though. I was sitting out on a snow pile in Vermont, like when they were used to be 9 feet tall, because I was only 3 feet tall, right? And I had a moment of knowingness. Something came into me very rapidly and very flushingly and lovingly. And I just had a moment that I understood how life started and life ended.
Really?
That moment. It was fantastic. But as a 9-year-old, I don't have the vocabulary to articulate this. And even now, 54, I struggle. Okay. So I run into my parents and I say, and my mom and dad don't even remember this because it's not their moment. And I said to them, I know how babies get here at 9, right? So they're like, oh, no, Catholic family, no. You know, let's talk about, you want a chocolate chip cookie kind of thing. You know? So I was trying to explain to them energy exchange and how everything comes together from a source of energy and then disperses and then comes back together and in and out. And in those moments, sometimes karmically, more energy that knows each other, has been informed before, comes together, and then you end up with certain experiences because more of you is familiar than not. Okay, that was the knowing that I had, and I've known that my whole life. Even in my Catholic faith, I struggled because I'm like, that doesn't really work with the thing that I know. But okay, we'll go with logic mind kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
So inside all of that, the Paralandra work that Michelle has makes complete sense. Like it was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is my truth. Now remember, I have prophet, I have a teacher of integrity, which is check the bullshit meter on things. And I also have this other soul language called passage inventor. So you ask what's next. So I'm able to synthesize, and I think that's how a powerful, graceful leader came through me. It's not of me, it came through me. And I do feel what's next is coming pretty quickly. And it really is an experience, I don't even know the right word because there are no words to explain it, if that makes sense. But it's a nature, I'm going to use the word alien because I don't know another word for it, and human intersection, cross-section, where all three of those things, and there's other things that I don't even have names for, come into union, and where we understand things that today we don't understand. We don't have we don't have a framework to understand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
That's a little out there.
No, I love it. Because you think about, I mean, there's what you're talking about. There's so many different similarities in history.
Mm-hmm.
Like you think about like the cavemen, right? You think about how did we jump? Yeah. Well, how do you jump from that to technology, right? Like you think about the agricultural revolution. Before that, let's go back, you know, when did we invent fire? I mean, you look at the leap from like caveman living in caves to agriculture. Like there's a long time of living in caves and hunters and gatherers. And there's a short spurt, boom, where we start learning how to use tools, how we start that was our technology. And all of a sudden, boom, agriculture, farms, boom, industrial age, boom, and technological age. I mean, there's things that help us, and it's not like one person either. It's like all over the world. Like people start having these ideas like during these certain time periods, and it's like, how are they getting them? It's consciousness. It's like the collective. It's like, and people are, what are you talking about? There are parts of history where you can say they've had the same, I'm sure somebody else had the theory of relativity outside of Einstein. Einstein just has, the credit for that. I mean, it is the collective consciousness that we share, that we pull from. The mind is not in the body, it is outside of the body. I mean, so what you're saying to me makes sense in a way that something's coming, right? I'm just waiting for, telepathy. I'm waiting to be able to, because I think that's going to be a real thing. I think once
I agree. It already is.
Well, it is, right? But people cover it up like it's not, because they don't feel comfortable with it. Remote viewing is a thing. Well, I hope telepathy doesn't be like, outdo podcasting, because that would suck. But
that's funny.
But I think we're in this, like, people, they want to call it the technology age or whatever. I really hope we pivot to like the consciousness, right? Like, I hope that is where we're going. I hope we, I don't care about computer chips and minds, Elon Musk. I care about, leveling up my consciousness so I can get to that place that you were at when you were 9 years old, the all knowing, that Hawkins moment, that bliss, the only way that I've been learning is through meditation. Like some of the old Indian sages, gurus and stuff, they talk about different types of yoga and meditation, Zen meditation. And I'm just trying to get there, because what they talk about, man, these guys have some incredible powers, like materializing things, like being in two places at once. Like,
you've got to grab Michelle's book, Pivot. If that's your jam,
Michelle, it's Michelle Ryder Smith, either one.
Yeah, she's gone under both names, but I think her Pivot book is under Smith.
It's called Pivot.
Pivot, Pivot. It's a memoir by her.
Yeah. Have you gotten to that space again, that place when you were 9? Have you been there?
A couple more times in my life, I have.
Really? Yeah. And what did you learn anything new?
I did. I mean, actually, as odd as this, you're asking me some really vulnerable questions. So, okay.
Alexsys Thomas, people, this is the real deal. This is the real her. So be grateful you get to hear it first here.
Yeah. Thanks for asking the tough questions. So, I don't know how other women feel or not, but when I gave birth to my children, that was one of those experiences for me.
Really?
Where you touch, the whole experience was just touching something that is divinity and pure love. And that's before, the whole process, not just holding your baby, but the whole thing that the body goes through, the things that my mind went through, how my heart grew to be with another human being in a way that I couldn't ever have imagined before. My children are my best teachers. And those moments have been over and over again, very blissful spots of time. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. I remember almost breaking my wife's leg when we gave birth, like me pushing. I'm a dumb dude, like, hold the leg, help push the leg. I'm like cranking this bad boy, like trying to pop this baby out, and she's screaming, hitting me, telling me she, stop pushing. So, I mean, yeah, it's a beautiful moment. I mean, I couldn't cry.
Awesome.
It was so like, I was just, and that's when I was like overridden with the ego. Like, I was like, I'm not going to cry. I don't care what I do. I'm not going to cry. And tears are like streaming down my face.
Yeah.
Don't you cry. I would cry worse now. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's what I'm saying, right? Because
I'd be I'd be on the floor just bawling, like,
then you get it, right?
Yeah,
so if you were the you now, then it would be a very different experience.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's so cool. 9 years old, and you get how long do you think it was, like, that experience?
It felt like from a child's perspective, it was Probably a few minutes. In reality, I have no idea. And that's the other thing that I've learned as I've grown is that time is an illusion anyway. So I don't even keep time anymore. When people call me and they're like, hey, one of my goals for my coaching is time management. I'm like, I'm not your girl. I am not that girl. And yet I always show up on time. Like I don't have a problem keeping up with with time. It's just that it's an innate thing now. It's not an external conversation anymore. It's not something I worry about managing.
Yeah.
I've been in 2 places or more places at one time than, so it's not a thing.
Talk about that. Like, how did you get there? Like, is that from through meditation? Is that through
Yes, it was meditation.
through meditation with a guided meditation, or is that with your program or what you're doing?
No, it was through Kundalini yoga meditation.
Really?
Yeah, the Kundalini yoga is the one that has been the most, that just the breathing work, the intensity of that breath work has been the most rapid accelerator for my own meditation practice.
Is that like the how you say it, holotropic breath work with Stan
It's
Groff?
called fire breathing.
Yeah. Okay. And you experience, what did you experience there?
So I've been able to be, I can dissociate by nature from a mental capacity of dissociation, but from an energetic perspective, I can't remember a time that I couldn't be at least 2 places at once. But it wasn't always a conscious thing. Sometimes it was just something that I got to experience.
An awareness kind of thing?
Yeah, and now it's on demand because I've learned to.
On demand?
Yeah.
So like, where can your awareness go now? Like, what can you do?
Wherever I want it to go.
Like seriously, that's awesome.
I don't know how to explain it to you. Like, sometimes I can be, you've heard this from athletes, I think. Like Laura Wilkins, she's a gold medal diving person. She's an amazing woman. And she explains that she had an injury before she won her gold medal. So she couldn't get on the diving board and do the practicing thing. Yet she was in her mind over and over again executing that task, right? She could feel what it felt like to climb up. She could feel like she was walking out and hitting that dive. And she could feel in her body when she was off a tad or not off a tad. And she just redo it all in here. And it's kind of like that. It's, I can sit, I don't do it anymore. Like if I'm going to be with you, I work on presence. I'm not here and somewhere else.
So is that like visualization?
I think that's the best way I know how to describe it, because that's kind of how it started for me.
Like, your awareness, like you can get in a place where your awareness goes somewhere and you're there, right? Like,
yeah, and I could tell you what it smells like and feels like there and here.
Does that line up with, like, if something were to happen there, right? Like if you were to experience like
trauma,
something, would it be like real time? Like, would you come back and be like, oh, that
I don't know, because I haven't had that experience, so I don't want to project a knowingness where I don't have it.
Where do you is there a place that you typically go or experience?
Yeah, it's always, I often go to nature, and sometimes I go check on my children.
Okay, that's a great example, right?
Yeah.
So when you go check on your children, is it their life? Are you peeking in on their life? Like, and you can confirm what they're doing?
Yeah, for me, it's not, I wouldn't say it's as literal like that. Like, so from a very young age, around the same age, so I sense more like auras, like energy and color and heat, I guess is a way to say it. So I could get down there, like they're in Texas, and I can scan their being, and because I'm their mom, I'm probably more in tune than if I tried to do it for you. But I can scan their being and know pretty quickly, hey, something's not right. And they don't get freaked out anymore. But then I text them and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? You having a bad day? They're like, Mom, stay out of my space. And I'm like, hey, just checking on you. So it's like that.
That's all. Well, Bob Monroe, if you read his books, that he used to do that. So he has, Bob Monroe is a huge out of body experiencer. And I don't know if do you know Tom Campbell? He has, so he believes everything. This is a simulation, like me just talking to you. Like this is just like The Sims, like it's all a figment of my imagination. However, I am the soul. It is me that is here to experience. And like, it's almost like the quantum theory where what is it? When I turn around, everything's there, but when I come back, it collapses into a wave. You know what I mean? When I observe it, it turns into a particle, and then when I don't observe it, it goes back to a wave like electrons. His theory is so, he's a quantum. He's a physicist, so his idea of reality and what he's experienced with Bob Monroe. Bob Monroe has a trilogy of books that I highly suggest you read. It is fantastic because he comes at it from a very scientific point of view. It's not at first, like he explains, like he thought he was going crazy. Like he didn't know what was going on. Like he was having these out of body experiences while he was sleeping and experiencing tests, like little tests that the universe would give him to see if he was ready for this. And like he talks about meeting other outside or out of body experiencers, and experiencing higher level consciousness that would give him experiences and see if he passed these different tests. And Thomas Campbell, who's still alive, Bob Monroe is not, but Thomas Campbell he was a kid back then, but he was a scientist, and he helped develop hemisync with Bob Monroe, which gets you into these different states of consciousness with your mind. So that way, they have these retreats where you just go at it with these binaural beats, and you get into these states of mind, and you have these experiences with them, and they go and you can have them together, and you can experience the universe and do different things. And the information that he tells us is fantastic. Like it's just, it's I think you would be very interested. I think you should look Thomas Campbell and Bob Monroe. I couldn't stop listening. You have to get the Audible version though, because the Audible is just awesome. Like, it's awesome. And buy your book too. This has been an amazing conversation. I hate to say we have to go.
You.
How can people connect with you, Lexi? How can they find out more about you?
Yeah, so it's Alexsys, spelled Alexsys, a little different. Thompson.com on Instagram, all the other things. You just put the name in, you'll find me. And
I just followed you, so yeah, definitely check you out. Yeah. What do you want your legacy to be?
Ubuntu. I hope to be a bridge and a catalyst for people to be still enough to see the other in themselves.
I love it. Lexi, thank you so much for joining the show. This has been a fantastic surprise having this conversation with you.
It has been. Thank you.